Well, this is my story of crocodile locomotives. I saw my first one back in 1952. It was an HO model of a Marklin one on 3 rail. I said at the time, if I ever have money in my life, I will have a few crocodile models. I will cover crocodiles in Swiss, Austrian, and German models. Pictured here is #1 scale. It's my flagship locomotive. In #1 scale, a Marklin Swiss Crocodile. It's also the most expensive model I likely own. It's fully DCC in sound. The sound is turned off because it's way too loud. It's also worth nearly $6,000. So here's a demonstration of it running. As I mentioned, this is a model of the Swiss Crocodile. So it has a Swiss lighting, which is a single red in the back. The pantographs are fully operable, as I will demonstrate. And I'm using some LGB catenary here. As I said, this is my flagship locomotive. I will next cover the German Crocodile. Now this is the German Crocodile, sometimes known as an alligator because of its short, snubby noses. This is an O scale and produced by MTH. MTH was also going to make a model of the Swiss Crocodile, but then Mike from Mike's Train House retired before it ever became to fruition. This is also fully DCC in sound. It was used in Germany and also in Austria. And I will explain further later on. This is just to give you an idea. It also has automatically reversing pantographs. They do it all by themselves. So now we will carry on to a bit of an overview of my crocodiles. This is going to be an overview of my crocodiles in multiple scales, but starting with the TE 103 or BR 103, German electric, 40 years old, 9,400 horsepower. In North American terms, more than 2 AC 4400s combined in power. We carry on to the German version of the BR E94, O scale, HO, N, Z scale by Marklin. And on to the Swiss Crocodile, which you saw running earlier, in #1 scale, HO scale, N, and again another Marklin Z scale model. And so you don't think I'm only fascinated with crocodiles. I also have quite a large bunch of SD40s. In number of road names, you see the ones in CP here. They're all mostly heavily weathered, all DCC and sound, and they're on one of my HO display modules. And there's some other CPR locomotives. Not enough crocodiles, you say? Top left is an Austrian crocodile. I will explain the differences later. The brown one is an Epoch 1 Swiss crocodile. On the right is a later model Swiss crocodile. The ones you see in red colors are Austrian road names. Again, the middle one here is an Austrian crocodile. The left one, E94 in Germany, but in Austria, better known as a Class 1020. And below you see the N-scale models. They're different manufacturers, but the one that shows up here, and you may assume that this is brass, well, you would be assuming wrong. It's 24 karat gold plating. I also have interests in other electrics. Witness my GG1s. As well as my Milwaukee Road electrics, you see bipolar and a Little Joe in both freight and passenger colors. All of these are DCC and sound, including the F7 on top. I have a large interest in electrics. Still not enough Crocodiles. These are all E94s. ESU, Lilliput, Roco, you name it. Happens to be a brass K36 DRGW on top. And even including a Lego Crocodile. On explanations, I will try and tell you the difference between the different crocodiles. The first version was a Swiss crocodile, which you see here. Originally they were brown in color. They made them articulated because they had tight radius curves to navigate over the Swiss mountains. And the reason they built them like that, in those days they didn't have traction motors or electric motors that could make small enough to give them the big power. So they had one very large electric motor under each hood and drove the axles through drive shafts, the same as a steam locomotive. So this is a model of the Swiss Crocodile. It's made by Trix, by the way. And coming up is a Austrian crocodile. You notice that it is very similar to the Swiss crocodile, although they appear to be much more rugged in appearance. Notice the louvers and so on were much rougher, but they used the same technology. This particular model was also made by Trix as a special run. And last but not least, here is the German crocodile, often called an alligator because of the snubby noses they had. They were very powerful. They were E94s, later called BR for Baureihe 94s, and they were also used in Austria, where they had the classification of 1120. This is an ESU model, which is a beautiful model, actually one of my very favorites. You notice the pantographs operate automatically. Operating these locomotives while also running the video is likely not the easiest thing in the world. And so I hope you enjoyed this little presentation. Oops, we're hung up in the cabinet. Here for reference are 3 crocodiles. The first one is a Swiss crocodile, but an Epoch 1 brown paint scheme. And the 2 red ones are the Austrian Crocodile ÖBB and the Austrian E94, also the class 1020. Well, I hope you picked something up from this. Thank you.